Chapter 5. So now it is Tuesday after school, and an emergency meeting of the forum has been called on account of what happened to Addie today, her being sent to Mr. Kiley's office and all, as well as some other matters I will attend to in due course. But I am not yet sitting with Addie and Skeezy and Joe in the back booth with the torn red leatherette upholstery at the candy kitchen. As of this very moment, I am standing 10 feet away from Kellerman, waiting. I listen to the sound of his fingertips drumming the wooden edge of the Calvin Klein neckwear display case, while at the same time making the observation that whenever the Muzak choral ooh-ah rendition of Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head plays, it is always followed by a sprightly accordion version of YMCA, and I think I may be trapped in a time warp, or an episode of The Twilight Zone. And then I begin to worry that if I keep coming here on Tuesdays and Fridays and the occasional Saturdays, I will become accustomed to standing around waiting for customers who do not appear, waiting for time to pass, waiting for who knows what, and that eventually I will turn into either Mr. Kellerman or a Zen Buddhist. I do not know why I have this job, except that my dad does not make much money at the nursery, and I do what I can to help out. So, okay, I know I have to work, but why this job? I cannot figure. Other than that my dad knows the store manager. Perhaps I think it is not about the job. Perhaps there is a lesson I am meant to glean from the experience. Perhaps it will make me a better person. I think I am already turning into a Zen Buddhist. At this moment, the anti-Buddha walks in the person of Jordan Bunch. "Look at you," he greets me with, "in that tie with all those little amoebas on it. How science dweeb is that?" "These aren't amoebas," I inform him. "This is a style called paisley." "Well, I think I knew that," says Joe, casting his eyes over the ties on the nearest display table and gingerly selecting a purple one. At least I do not have to worry that his hands are filthy. This is never a question with Joe. I glance over my shoulder to see if Kellerman is giving me the evil oculus, but he is not so much as looking in my direction. He appears to be lost in thought, and whatever has got his brain cells occupied is having a strange effect on his facial muscles. They are not locked into their usual "the world is beneath me" sneer, but hang on his face like melting cheese, creating the illusion that he's an actual human being, and a sad one at that. Seeing him like this makes me wonder once again about his life outside Awkworth and Ames, and I make a mental note to try and find out a thing or two. Joe has come to remind me of the emergency forum at 5:15, which will be brief but crucial. I have no doubt that the words coming out of his mouth have been supplied by Addie. Joe does not say such things as brief but crucial, whereas Addie loves to make herself sound like a business executive. I worry about her sometimes. Joe has also come to have his pinky fingernail repainted by his Aunt Pam. "Can you take a break?" he asks me. I look at the clock. I have been working, or what passes for working, at Awkworth and Ames, for only 40 minutes. I am not entitled to take a break until I've worked for at least an hour. It says that somewhere in the 6 stapled pages. "Not yet," I tell him. Joe goes off to find his Aunt Pam. He is doing a little dance as he goes that is sort of a polka version of YMCA, and I return to listening to Mr. Kellerman's digit drumming, and I suddenly imagine I hear this deep voice intoning, "You are traveling to another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone." My dad and I have been watching way too many episodes of The Twilight Zone. By the time my break comes and I join up with Joe, Pam has already finished painting his fingernail with a black and white yin-yang sign on a bright yellow background. "Like it?" Joe asks. This is not a multiple choice question. "Awesome," I say. Pam is standing there, with her hair all frosted pink to match the pink jacket they make all the cosmetics lady at Awkworth and Ames wear. On most of them it looks like a rag. A schmat, Joe calls it. But on her, it's high fashion. I get a sniff of some kind of perfume. I'd bet a week's supply of Malomar's has the word magnolia somewhere in its name, and I decide that the only way I can handle a conversation at the moment without embarrassing myself is to select a boring topic. My topic of choice, Kellerman. Hey, Pam, I say, trying to sound old and studly. Hey, Bobby, she gives back in a magnolia sort of way, making me feel I've almost succeeded. What do you know about Mr. Kellerman? I go on, figuring the faster we get to all the boring stuff, the better for all concerned. Pam laughs. At the sound of it, I pray, dear God, give me the strength to get through the next 10 minutes without dissolving into a pool of lustful, preteen sweat. Funny question, Pam says. Bobby's a funny guy, Joe puts in. Ooh. When Joe goes, ooh, it usually means he's found something more interesting going on than his conversation with you. So do not expect further attention. In this case, what distracts him is an Estee Lauder gift bag that is your gift with any $25 purchase. Joe has to know what is in it. He moves down the counter to check it out. Pam leans on her elbows in my direction, a move that causes me to develop an intense, nearly scientific interest in my shoelaces. Mr. Kellerman, she says. Well, he's kind of a sad character, isn't he? I notch my head about 1 degree Pam's way. You think? I ask. He seems kind of that way to me today, too, but most times he just seems like the kind of person who never learned to get up on the right side of the bed. Pam laughs again, and my sweat glands go into overdrive. I curse whoever invented adolescence and ask God to keep me upright and odor-free for another 8 minutes. He's a real grouch for sure, she goes on. But one thing I've learned in my 28 years of living, Bobby, is that if someone's a grouch, it's usually because they're not happy. And if they're not happy, there's a reason for it. So, do you know what the reason is in Kellerman's case? I am aware that I am not calling him Kellerman in front of Pam. I do not want her to think lowly of me. Pam says, all I know is that he's a middle-aged guy who still lives with his mother and gets up every day of his life to sell clothes in a department store untouched by the passage of time. That would be enough to make me a grouch. Why the interest? I shrug. It's the best answer I have. Well, if you're like me, Pam goes, letting me off the hook, you're curious what makes people tick. I mean, we're all so complicated, don't you think? Sometimes I think we're too complicated. That's why I came here to live for a while. Simplify things, you know? I nod like I know what she's talking about. I do not have a clue. Mr. Goodspeed! Gotta go, I say, and make a mad dash for the men's department. From the sound of his voice, Kellerman is back to being his old cranky self. The trouble is, now that I've heard what Pam has to say about him, I can't see him as 100% cranky anymore, or 100% terrible, or 100% anything, except maybe 100% human. And I'm not so sure I like that. Because when you get down to it, thinking of someone as 100% human seriously gets in the way of hating them.